Welcome to the Consultants Way podcast, your go-to resource for all things professional services consulting. Brought to you by McMahon & Ransford, a strategy consulting firm with over 30 years of experience helping B2B organizations achieve sustainable growth, and the Consultants Way, the leading comprehensive consultant development program. Hosted by Dean McMahon and Anthony Paluska, we share expert insights, firsthand experiences, and conversations with industry leaders on the topics that interest you most.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of their employer, company, or affiliated organizations.
Welcome back to the Consultants Way podcast. Anthony Paluska, Dean McMahon, and today we are joined by Kevin Roman.
Hey,
Kevin, welcome.
How's it going, Anthony? Dean?
Wonderful. Good to see you again. Just saw you a week or so ago in person, so this is a little different, but I'm glad we can make this work. So for the audience, Kevin is the Director of Professional Services and Software Solutions at Canon USA. And Kevin, before we dive into the topic today, provide the audience with a little bit more of your background and experience.
Sure. Again, thank you for the opportunity to obviously come express some of the day-to-day, that we do in professional services. We learn a lot from these opportunities. My background, I'm now the director, obviously, of professional services and software solutions, right, at Canon. But I have about 8+ years now focusing on transforming really the value of what our customers bring to the print business, right? So we are very focused, and unfortunately that my team and I are responsible for, making sure those customers achieve those outcomes, right? So really that's I think the day-to-day, what we really strive to do. If you look back, before I was with Canon, I spent time with IBM, with Kodak. I had various roles in professional services and software solutions, been everything from an analyst to an architect to sales, and actually sales too. So a little bit of everything. And then obviously my management career started at Kodak, and it was just such a great opportunity to be in leadership with professional services. So at the end of the day, what really drives what I do is seeing our customers succeed with our technology. The printing system has evolved quite dramatically, I think, over the years. And it's really no longer just about selling hardware. And I think that's what we're going to get to talk about today. It's about delivering these complete turnkey solutions that drive business transformation for our clients.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic to talk about. We're excited to have you here. And like I said, we just happened to be at the same event a couple of weeks ago. We ran into each other. We started diving into all these topics, and we said, hold on, let's save the discussion for this. Don't waste all the good stuff when we're not recording. So before we dive into the topic, which is really the point that you were just on, right? Both transformation that you've been through many times, but also this collision of professional services and customer success. I think it's going to be important to dive a little bit deeper into what you were saying about the print industry and how what your focus area is, what your guiding light is, how you view success for your organization, and how Canon views success for your organization. So take us through kind of without getting into all the details, kind of the model of how your business works and what you guys are focusing on.
It's interesting. I love how you use the word collide, right? These two worlds come together, and increasingly it's becoming two sides of the same coin, right? So it's interesting. Traditionally, what you would know professional services as a project-based work, right? Where you implement a solution, you train users, and move on to the next project. Well, we have really started to look at how customer success can really play a big part of how we grow our businesses together, right? So true partnership. So when you look at customer success, on the other hand, it's really been viewed as this ongoing relationship management function, right? It's totally different from what the typical project-based work was, right? So now, in this world of high-speed inkjet that I play in every day, that's a distinction that's starting to, I would say, blur pretty quickly, right? It's pretty quickly. And what we've seen is there's been an intersection, and this is where they intersect, right? So first, I would say the technology is very complex, right? So the modern production inkjet systems, the implementation isn't just a one-time event, right? We go in and we see it as the beginning of a journey. Our professional service team members really focus on maintaining their ongoing expertise and involvement with the customers and adapting their workflows and maximizing their output quality, time over time. It's what we do. And then, secondly, the recurring revenue model has changed everything, right? So, if you think about a printer sale, right? So a printer sale is very important, but really from a hardware centric business like ours, we're starting to really put a focus on service contracts, consumables, and software subscriptions for some of the software that we sell. So that means we have to really consistently deliver value to retain those customers. If we don't do that, then we basically put ourselves in a position that we're not growing alongside each other. And I think that's important. And then finally, data has become what we feel as I would say, a central point of both of these functions, professional services and customer success. We're starting to use data information that we gather from implementations, and we bring it together from all these deployments, and then we really kind of build a path for what the future says, right? And the customer success piece really starts initiating and leverages the use of that data and helps us really, I would say, optimize their operations. I think that's really, really key.
Kevin, I want to just illuminate something you said, which I think is causing a lot of surprise in the SaaS revolution, if you will, which is you're not going to keep them if you're not continually making value. And I think that so much of the software transition to SaaS and technology's transition to SaaS was just a different way to price.
Yeah.
Right. And to be honest, a way to price that allowed the vendors to make more money. I mean, right? Yeah. So hey, that no vendors against that, but the buyers got into a longer term relationship. And I think we all wake up now, and we had Bob Wright, who's a market positioning expert for SaaS, mentioned that, hey, once the land grab's over, that moment you have to be intimacy, PS, solve problem business. And that's why I think the collision's going on, because customer success is not separate from value. It's not just calling them anymore. It's not even just selling upsells. It's a different kind of relationship. And the sooner people understand it, and that means PS needs to be much more sophisticated than project work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You hit something there, right? So at Canon, we've been working toward what we call a unified value delivery model. So when you talk about providing that value, it's how we unify that. It's really where implementation expertise from my team and professional services flows directly right into those initiatives, right? Those customer success initiatives. It's not about these separate handoffs. It's really about, how do we create what I would say like a seamless experience where expertise is continuously applied throughout the customer lifecycle. That journey from the time that customer buys that printer until they have to make a decision to hopefully add that second printer. I think that's the key. And we are working very closely throughout that life cycle. No hit and run here. We're here for the long term. And I think that's what makes the difference when you bring customer success and customer focus into professional services.
Yeah, and it should naturally make, and I'm asking this, so two things we see when it's done really well. One is they continue to buy more stuff, right? And that's great. And the intimacy allows that because, well, why wouldn't we buy Canon? We love them, right? So it takes some pressure off pricing and stuff. But the other thing is the feedback loop back to the organization of new services, new products, bigger share of wallet. Only happens when you're working with them, implementing things in their business. And sales is not in their business. R&D is not in their business. Only PS is.
That's right. Very good. Yeah. Well said, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and you guys are doing that live right now. I mean, I think you're a great example. I whenever I think about you, I think of all the great brands you've been with. Right? No, who's ever heard of these three companies, IBM, Canon, and Kodak? I mean, it's like off the charts. And but we're all going on the same trip, right?
Absolutely. And the professional services community is just a tremendous community. We saw it, Anthony and I, last week at Interact. It was great. It was a great place to meet a lot of our colleagues. And we all really truly have the right mindset of where we're trying to do. Of course, we want to grow our business, but we now understand we can't do that by selling one-off solutions. We have to work very closely with our customers to help them grow their business, right? And it's more than, I'll give you an example. Again, you think we're a printer vendor, so we're all about, let's sell the printer. But for me, it's really important that we provide even training back to their sales team. So if you think of a commercial printer, right, who's been an offset shop, right, for a very long time, and so they're used to one type of technology, and the salesperson now has to sell a new type of technology. Who trains them on that? Well, we found an opportunity there. And now we are actually providing those type of solutions for our customers. But because what we find is if they obviously sell more print, ultimately they adopt our devices, because it's all about adoption, right? And they start adopting the technology, they hit their ROIs, they hit the mark, they put us in a position of truly a win-win with them. The customers really, truly see that as a partnership. And I can't be any more fortunate to be in a field that I'm in, that I get to every day work toward, pleasing customers and fulfilling all their, all the needs that they have. So
can you remember back maybe 10 years ago, if we'd have said, listen, we need to teach our clients, salespeople, how to sell the advantage of having more clients for them. And the organization would say, what do you guys do again?
Yeah.
Why are you even in this meeting? Just go out there and implement this stuff. And but now we really believe, and that's what our whole business is, that the center and the future of technology is PS.
For sure.
It is. And not that the leaders get it yet. Right, we don't have enough CEOs that came out of PS in our companies, but But your customers get it, right?
The customers are absolutely getting it, right? So you have sales that delivers that initial experience, right? You have service that's really trying to do everything they can to obviously keep that system up and running, keep their value up and running. We tend to be the value generator. We're that person in between that can take them and bridge them in many different directions and actually help them grow their business, right? Service really doesn't have that ability, and neither does, in a lot of cases, sales. So we are that opportunity for them to grow their business. And that's the way we've seen it. And our customers obviously are just tremendously enthused about the opportunity of having that type of partnership. So it's really good stuff.
Yeah, we have so many conversations with professional services leaders, even sales leaders on, hey, we want to be driving more outcomes for our customers, and we want to be customer outcome focused. Well, you all have not only embraced that, but tied your economic and your financial model to, hey, if the customer grows, we're better off because of that. And so we're not just going to focus on things directly in our sphere of products, but instead, what are the things that affect whether or not our customers can grow? And so I think training of their salespeople is an excellent example of that. But that comes out of embracing that mindset that says, hey, our goal here isn't just to get them to adopt and to optimize the use of our products. It's to make them more successful wherever we can. And I just, we spent a lot of time on that topic. I just am impressed with kind of where you all are headed with that and the commitment that you've made to, we're in the problem solving and the customer outcome business.
What it's all.
But it also means you have to drag the company with you and drag your own people. right? I mean, and we really are. I mean, our people weren't born, if you will, or issued or trained to solve problems, deal with executives, explain how to bring them along, look around the corner, tell them what's coming. But once they get, this is the greatest joy of my life. Once somebody gets there and can act differently, well, wow, they've got a career.
Yeah, take both of those for us and share your experiences on them. One, bringing your company along the journey and getting them to understand PS and CS, and we need to play this broader role because it's good for the organization. So, any experience that you had on roadblocks or internal selling that you had to do, and what was successful. And then we'll take the second topic, which is bringing your team along to adopt this broader mindset. But let's start with the executive team.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So the executive team knew we had to do something different, right? And sitting across the table, we do our strategy sessions every year, and we did them again this year, and we really keep putting the focus back on the customer. And when we do that, it really does bring some light. But let's talk about maybe some of the misconceptions that we actually started to see in those discussions, right? They're like, our customers, the only thing they really care about is making sure their equipment runs without problems. So I had that facet of the organization, right? And that's probably more of a service mindset, makes sense. And maybe even sales thinks that way. But let's look at reality. Reality, today's production print environments are incredibly sophisticated. And when you look at those operations where the technology is just, basically one component is just, from one end to the other of a workflow that connects marketing systems, right? These automation systems and all the variable data platform. So we had to do some training internally to make sure that they understood the real value of customer success in the world of the hardware vendor, right? Because they're not used to it, right? The software is where they've seen it. They've seen it in the SaaS model. Obviously, very much a big part of most companies that are pushing SaaS. So we had to explain to them, look, customer success is really about how we understand our technology supports a broader business objective. And I think that's the key that I tried to push, right? And I gave an example. We have customers in direct mail who they're using high-speed inkjet systems to enable, highly personalized mail, and they have rapid turnarounds. But something, success for them isn't just about uptime. It's whether, can they meet the compressed deadlines upstream, right? The workflow upstream, right? So anybody could throw dots on a page, but, what do you do before and after the press, right? And how that all comes together and how we envision that. And if you put a press in and you walk away, you don't get to really see all those parts come together. So we had to, obviously really pitch that pretty hard to the executive team so that they can understand. And then even more importantly is, how do we measure that? How do we measure success? Wow, that's always a big one, because you're now trying to figure out, how do I measure this success when every month's a different month. And ultimately we were able to put some metrics, I think, together that I think really shifted the mindset of the executive team, where we actually started seeing, I can't go into the specific numbers, but we started seeing double-digit increases of service and supplies, specifically on the supply side. That tells us a couple things. One is the adoption of the press is obviously increasing, and it's actually increasing faster than our placements, which is when you really know that we've done well. So that actually became an important part of the story. And then finally, how we really turned all that into a consistent value chain, right? Back to the business and back to the customer. They want more, we're giving more, and then the bottom line. So at the end of the day, I think I think really the leadership team really knew we had to do something. Their biggest concern is it's an investment, right? It's a 7-digit year every year investment into the business. That's obviously providing value is what we found. So I think we've gotten past that. We've gotten past
Yeah. Did you? I mean, you made the case, and then you set some metrics that you were going to track against. Was it a big bang rollout of how we want to operate differently, or did we pilot it somewhere? How'd the actual implementation of this go?
Yeah. So you, as you can imagine, you have this great idea. You initially have no money or people to implement it. So you bootstrap it, right? And having a pretty decent sized organization, what we started to look at first is, how do we test this, right? Let's test the case. Because once you test the case, then we can actually come back and actually start proving its value. So we actually started testing this out on a small scale to some of our, I would say, our more important customers, and started to gain their feedback, because it was important not just to deliver, but to make sure that the feedback that we're getting, that feedback loop was important. We knew at that point that it was going to really start to take off, because we started having our customers really want to advocate for us, right? They actually started selling not only to our other customers the great value of it, but also to my executive team, right? And saying, hey, this is very important to us. This adds value to us. And we like that you perform this as part of our relationship, and not providing actually an invoice all the time for every service that you provide. You actually see the value in a long-term relationship. So that's how we started. I used to kind of kid around, one man in a truck, right? And before you know it, we had five individuals that were focused on it. We've now gotten to the point that customer success is a standard concept for all the roles within PS. They may be different, right? They may be different on how they roll out, but they're all part of customer success. And I'm going to tell you, that is, at the end of the day, really did turn the tide for everyone. And really have seen some really good numbers come from it.
That's
I
great.
like the idea of you bringing the customers in. We've done this, 45 times or so, and they don't listen internally well. But you bring some executives in from the customers, and all of a sudden they sit up, they ask questions. So
Yeah,
I love that.
that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah, and
Well, Kevin, yeah, let's talk about the other side of it, which is bringing the team along, right? These are new skills. These are all sorts of things. How did that journey go for you?
yeah. So that was it was a different mindset. Again, project-based team. So typically when you try to align a project-based professional services team with customer success type, principles, it's really can be challenging, but it also could be rewarding. So we kind of took I would say, a multi-step type approach, or a multifaceted approach. First, I would say we invested heavily in cross-training, right? Making sure that our technical implementation team really understood and received the training, not just on technology, but also on business outcomes, right? How do you map those to real value? Really, that was very, very important. And that was really, I would say, changed the mindset of the team in regards to, oh, I see this. So it's not just getting something up and running. It's really what the end game is, that business outcome that we're trying to hit, and how we tie that truly to value. So, with that, we keep moving along. And, I would say another area that I think was important is the way we structured, I guess, our team meetings, right? So instead of just reviewing project timelines and technical challenges, now we started to regularly discuss those customer outcomes. We also talked about success stories. right? Because that's really important. Because as we start talking about success stories, new opportunities come up, new ideas. We start to celebrate when customers actually achieve their business goals. And, when they can achieve their business goals using our technology, I think that's just amazing. And then third, we put some effort in our documentation approach. So, first thing on the marketing side, they helped us with a lot of great literature. So, obviously, always send thanks to the marketing teams because they just do a tremendous job for us. But also, our technical teams now create what we call like success playbooks. So, these are actual playbooks for different situations for different customers, right? So that we can actually use them to try to determine what is that next step, right? These are all things that are just pretty standard operating procedure for customer success, but totally different for a hardware focused company. So it was really interesting. It really did, I think, ultimately drove some opportunity there. And then finally, I would say, how do we incent the professional service teams to act on all these things now that we're asking of them, right? They've now gone from just a technically focused team to a value driven team, right? And even though they were driving value in their technology, they now are driving value in multiple different ways. So what we did is we just didn't go and say, we're going to measure you on project completion, billable hours, how much revenue you brought from software and services. We actually started to look at things like their customer sat scores, right? How well the adoption of the presses were, right? How fast, right? Because we're real big on time to value. Time to value is huge, right? The faster we can get and it's a two-way street. Think about that. The faster we can get a customer up and running, producing, the faster we start seeing revenue from the back end. And I think it's amazing. So, kind of the, 3 or 4 facets there as they all come together. First, we had to obviously teach them. We provided the documentation, all the training, and then we created a plan that ultimately allowed them to execute on it. And that's really the incentive behind it. So really cool stuff at the end of the day.
Just super, super, Kevin. So exciting to get you sharing what we hope everybody does. And we're not we're not saying they're not on the road. It's just one, you guys have been able to get to a place on the road to, if you will, you've gone up the hill and gotten to a plateau where it's successful, and you can look around and say, hey, this is how it all works together.
Yeah.
That's really super.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin. Before we let you go, I want to give you the opportunity. We've touched on a bunch of different things on this journey. Put yourself in the audience in somebody's shoes that is looking to go through something similar to you have, and you've done a great job of organizing how to communicate internally, how to think about taking the team along the journey, how to think about leveraging the customers through this whole process. But is there anything else, some words of wisdom and some guidance you would give to somebody else that's looking to solve a similar problem or go on a similar journey?
So again, I spent time at IBM. So there's this, we have this saying, how do you eat the elephant? Right. I think it was Mr. Gerstner who put that in his book. Right. So we eat an elephant one bite at a time. So I would say one bite at a time. Right. So, always pause, kind of reflect, and then proceed. Right. So what do we do? What do you do when you want to take those next steps? And here's a couple things, right? Integration is essential. I think it's important, right? For the silos that we have between organizations, especially professional services and customer success, those are disappearing. So let's make them disappear. So focus on integration. How do we, right, at the end of the day, unify our customer value teams so that we stay engaged and we ultimately keep delivering throughout the customer lifecycle. The second thing I would say is outcome obsession wins the game. So be obsessed on outcomes, focus on outcomes. The more you focus on outcomes, what I think you'll find that customers will see that and will see the difference and will help those customers really achieve their business goals it will just take you naturally through the process. So outcome obsession wins. So remember that. And then data transforms relationships, right? So data, uh, without data, I don't know what to do, right? We were talking about that from last week with all the AI and all this data. There's a lot of data out there, but how do we bring it all together? But what I would say is start leveraging all that data that you have, right? So the data that comes from the technology, the data that comes from your implementations, right? Provide those insights to the customers. Those are things that the customers can't get elsewhere. You got to provide them. I think that's super important. And then invest in people, right? I think the people, and you heard about some of the things we did with training, the documentation. Let's make sure that we're investing in the people, because the people are what matter at the end of the day, right? They're the ones that will help us shift our business and our new processes to, this mindset that we have of customer first. And I think that's super, super key. And then lastly, I would say, create feedback loops with your customers. I think something we talked about early on is make sure that you are learning alongside your customers. So as a customer, as you're delivering these engagements, that it flows back to you, right? It flows back to professional services. You modify, you reiterate, you iterate as needed, and it helps back and forth. So that's a little bit, those are the things I would really try to focus on if I was doing this all over again. Those are the things I've learned over the journey, and I think they're very important for any leader.
Yeah, I think all of those are very helpful. We touched on some of them. We probably ought to spend some time with you diving deeper on them. Maybe we do a 10-minute session or so and just take one or two of those topics and just go through what are some best practices, even around each of those 5 things that you listed there at the end, because each of those can be unpacked so much further.
Sure.
And we didn't get to do that today. So, but we do appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective, sharing your journey with the audience and with us. And looking forward to diving a little bit deeper and then running into you again in some random town somewhere in the U.S.
Hope to do that.
Yeah.
Hope to do that for sure.
Sure.
Great job, Kevin. Thank you so much.
You.
We'll have you back, buddy.
Look forward to it.
What a great conversation with Kevin, and happy to reconnect with him here. We had spoken previously, but then he, like we said, he and I just happened to be at the same place, and we started diving into all these different topics. And the conference that we were at, there's a lot of the right themes, right? I mean, that's centered around what he was focusing on, but the hardware professional services space is just at this kind of an inflection point of we have to behave a lot more like the software companies do, and this customer success mindset. And it's not just a one-time purchase. And so Kevin, I think very, very clearly explained the journey that a lot of organizations like him are going through right now as they're trying to increase customer stickiness and lifetime value and drive customer outcomes and all the things we've said for a long time, but now we're actually changing our operating model to do it.
Yeah, and I hope we are. And let's not give a pass to the software industry. Just because you have a department doesn't mean you're actually, manic about outcomes, right? And I thought his 5 things at the end were really great. But just a wonderful guy, great talk, and we will definitely have him back again to explore, more about their journey.
Yeah, you're right about the software company. You're right about the software companies, though, because they've talked about it, and some do an exceptional job at it. But there is this very siloed mentality of customer success is responsible for customer retention and some customer satisfaction and for certain outcomes, and professional services lives over here. And there's not this shared sense of responsibility and a shared journey in all organizations between the handoff from pre-sales to implementation to optimization work to customer success and everything that goes along the way to make sure that we are driving towards those outcomes. So it's a fair point. But if you enjoyed this and this conversation, you want to hear more like it, subscribe to our Consultants Way YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatever else you may be using. You can connect with Dean or I on LinkedIn, or you can always email us at the show's email address, which is podcast@consultantsway.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.